Parkinson's can steal your movement, but sometimes the medication can steal your judgment. I'm talking about impulse control disorders, the side effect hardly anyone warns us about. We're talking about gambling, overspending, binge eating, even risky behavior that totally feels out of character. And the scary part, it can sneak up on you years after starting the meds. So today I'll share what it looks like, how to spot it, and what to do if it happens. And stick with me till the very end because I've got a Bryce-ism about Parkinson's meds that you will not forget.
Welcome to Living with Parkinson's. The good, the bad, and the reality. Real talk, real life, real community with Bryce Perry. Let's begin.
Well, welcome back to Doing Life Today. I'm Bryce, and this is Living with Parkinson's, the good, the bad, and the reality. Now, let's talk about one of the most shocking and misunderstood Parkinson's side effects, impulse control disorder, or ICDs. Now, I'll get real with you. I've been on dopamine agonists for years, and thankfully, I haven't had that big of issues as some people face. But I did notice little signs here and there, times when I got hyper focused on something, and Carmen would have to like give me that look, that look, that look that says, Bryce, maybe take a break. Look, sometimes our loved ones catch things before we even realize what's happening ourselves. So, what exactly are impulse control disorders? Well, again, they're ICDs. You might hear that as well. But basically, they're compulsions caused by Parkinson's meds, usually the dopamine agonists, right? The same chemical that helps us move can also kick the brain into overdrive. And I don't mean grabbing an extra cookie or buying one extra shirt. I'm talking about urges and behaviors that feel completely out of character. Like things like gambling, casinos, online poker, sports betting, people who've never gambled before suddenly spending hours and losing money. Another one could be compulsive shopping. Boxes arriving at the door, credit cards maxed out, and you're standing there saying, when did I even order this? Another great big one is hypersexuality, changes that are sudden, intense, and can cause real strain in relationships. Then there's binge eating, raiding the pantry like a midnight zombie, or obsessing over hobbies, hours lost, unable to walk away. Here's what shocked me the most. I know someone who was fine for more than a decade on the same medication, no issues at all. Then out of nowhere, they developed a gambling problem that nearly wrecked their marriage and their finances. 10 years in? Huh, that's why it's so sneaky. So let me ask you this. Has your doctor ever warned you about impulse control disorders? Drop a yes or a no in the comments. Your story might be the one that saves somebody else from going through this, but just a quick yes or no. Um, Now, I've heard stories from the community that break my heart. One guy who had never even been to a casino started sneaking out at night, gambling away his savings. Another one where a woman who always managed money carefully racked up thousands on online shopping, and she couldn't even remember ordering some of this stuff. And then there's the caregiver side. Imagine being a spouse and suddenly the person you've known for decades is acting like a stranger. Carmen and I talk a lot about this, how important it is for care partners to feel safe enough to say something's off. And that's why conversations like this matter. This isn't about shame, it's about awareness. So let me give you some signs to look for. How do you spot it? Well, here are the red flags to keep an eye on. Number one is sudden gambling urges. Again, not normal, out of the ordinary, and urgent, like you have to do it. Um, Compulsive shopping or packages arriving constantly. And when it comes to sexual behavior, I mean, it's big changes in that sexual behavior that have come out of the blue. That's the things to look for. Eating binges, not overeating, like binges, like things where you can't stop. It's compulsive. Or this is a sneaky one too. Hours lost to hobbies where you just can't stop. Or on your phones or social media or your computer where you look around and all of a sudden you realize hours have gone by and you didn't even realize it. And here's the number that should make us all sit up. Okay. Studies show that anywhere from 14 to 30% of people on dopamine agonists will experience impulse control disorders. Now, that's like 3 in every 10 of us. That's not rare. That's a big deal. Now, if I could flash those numbers on the screen right now, 14 to 30%, I would, because I want those numbers to be burned in your minds. Okay, so what do you do if you notice these signs? Okay, well, let's get practical. First thing you have to do is talk to your doctor, and you have to be brutally honest. I know it's embarrassing, but your neurologist, your doctor has heard it before. I've met people who hid it out of shame, and by the time they came clean, the damage was done. It was huge. So don't wait. Second, involve your partner or your caregiver. Carmen has noticed things in me long before I did. And sometimes denial blinds us. The people around us will see it first. Third, track your behavior. Write it down, journal it, note when the urges hit. Was it after a certain dose? Was it late at night? Was it after stress? Those patterns will give your doctor something to work with. The fourth thing you do is you may medication adjustments may be needed. Sometimes the fix is as simple as lowering the dose. Other times it's switching to a different med. I've seen people with ICDs vanish. I've seen their ICDs completely vanish once the balance was right. And then the fifth thing to do, if none of that's working, safeguards. This is practical stuff. I mean, if gambling is an issue, give your spouse control of the debit card. If shopping's the issue, freeze your credit cards or set spending limits. If it's eating, don't stock the house with trigger foods. These aren't punishments, they're protections for you. And here's a bonus: community support. If you're struggling, there are hotlines, there's groups. Sometimes just saying it out loud to people who understand lifts the weight. It's amazing. It's just amazing how that works. But here's something that most people don't realize: impulse control disorders don't always show up right away. They can creep in years after you've been fine. And I'll share another story about that in just a second. Now, if you think doctors should be warning us about this way more often than they do, then do me a favor, hit that like button so this message gets spread further, because I think doctors should warn us about this way more often and make it clear. And here's another question for you: has your partner, or friend, or your caregiver partner, or your kids, anybody, ever called you out on something that you didn't even realize you were doing? Share that story in the comments, because that comment might be the one that makes someone else connect the dots. Okay, back to the story. The person I mentioned who developed the gambling issues 10 years in, the only reason it got caught was because their spouse noticed it, right? They got honest with their doctor, then they switched meds, and things leveled out, but it nearly cost them everything. And that's the thing. This can sneak up years into treatment. So don't assume just because you've been fine that you're immune. You always, always, always have to keep an eye out for this. And you know what? Let's not forget the emotional toll. For the person going through it, there's shame, confusion, guilt. And for the partner, there's fear and sometimes anger. Now imagine suddenly not recognizing the person you love. That's why awareness, honesty, and open conversations are so important. No one should go through this in silence. No one should. So here's the takeaway: Parkinson's meds can give us some of our movement back, right? But they also can bring challenges. Impulse control disorders are one of those hidden ones. And the more we talk about them, the more we protect each other. And that's so important. And if you made it this far, thank you. But you've unlocked the Bryce-ism. And yes, I do have one, and here it is. Parkinson's meds might help us move, but we've got to keep an eye on where they move us. And if this video gave you something to think about, please hit like and share it with somebody who needs to hear it. And let's keep the conversation going. Have you or someone you know ever experienced these impulse control issues with Parkinson's? Your story might be the lifeline for somebody else. Now, I know some of these are hard to talk about. Some may be embarrassing and you may be ashamed of it yourself, but it's okay. We've all been there. So if you want this deeper connection, you want to be able to talk about these things in private with people that get it, with me and other people who get it and have gone through it, then you got to come to the Inner Circle. It's a private community where we talk live on Zoom and where we share stories and remind each other that we're not in this alone. right? And it's available 24/7. And people are, my phone is actually going off right now as I can see people putting posts and helping each other in the inner circle. So please, the links in the description. And there's no pressure, but it's good for you. Okay. And until then, and until next time, keep showing up, keep being real, and keep doing life today.